And joining us tonight with more is Cherise Trump, Executive Director of Speech First. Cherise, always a pleasure to have you with us. For those who are not familiar with these hate speech laws in Europe, can you quickly tell us a little bit about them? And do those laws differ from country to country?
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize the major differences between the U.S. legal system and much of the Western European countries, as well as Canada, because I think when Americans think of the West, right, we think that we all have very similar legal systems and that we have similar rights and protections of our individual liberties. But that's actually not the case at all. In fact, the United States is very unique in that our law says, or our Constitution says, that Congress shall make no law abridging the right to the freedom of speech. And because that is a limitation on the government, that's what makes it especially unique. But when you look at European countries, like, for example, if you look at France, they say that, in their statement of individual rights, they say that folks, everyone is entitled to the right to free speech, except for when it is tantamount to the abuse of this liberty, or in the cases determined by law. See how they write exceptions into their law, because their legal system is designed around putting limitations on individual liberties, not so much on putting limitations on the government, like here in the U.S. Even Germany's laws say that their rights should actually find limitations in the provisions of general laws, provisions for protection of young persons, and in the right to personal honor can be considered a provision of how your free speech rights might be limited. So you can see how the government in a lot of these European countries gives itself a lot of leeway to impose restrictions on what they call hate speech, which then again, who defines what hate is, right? So it's a very subjective term.
Oh, absolutely. I'm curious, though, Cherise. I mean, why do you think a European leader decided to weigh in on laws here in the United States? And what do you think that could signal?
I mean, that's an excellent question, because it does kind of convey the message that they know something that we don't, as if it's coming our way soon and we should prepare ourselves. But we have seen speech codes taking place on college campuses and in social media, and I think that's what they're kind of going off here. You see that there's misinformation laws and hate speech, not laws, but actual codes being enforced on companies like Twitter by itself, through the FBI. So there is some sort of door being cracked open here with those who are trying to control what people are saying, as well as on university campuses. So I think what, this World Economic Forum, you see these European elites telling us they're coming to us soon, is because they think there's an opening here for that to happen. But again, there is a very unique culture in the United States when it comes to free speech that I think Europeans have a very difficult time wrapping their heads around, because it is something that is very unique. And our U.S. Supreme Court actually has held up time and time again that there is no hate speech exception to the First Amendment. There's no offensive speech exception, and there's no misinformation exception to the First Amendment. So that is something that even most recently in a 2019 lawsuit, the Supreme Court voted unanimously saying that offensive speech is not something that is going to be limited by the First Amendment.
Yeah, and Cherise, I want to go back to what you had mentioned about the censorship that is at some colleges and on social media. I mean, is that even legal? Can they do that? And who determines what's so-called misinformation?
That's an excellent question. Who does determine what misinformation is or what hate speech or offensive speech is? On a lot of these college campuses, it's up to the administrators. Students are asked to report on each other, oftentimes anonymously, if they hear anything that they think is offensive or hateful, or, even jokes or microaggressions, whatever a microaggression is. Some universities even define microaggression as something that is simple as saying or asking someone where they are from. So, universities will take these reports, and then the administrators, who are oftentimes very illiberal in their behavior, and they do actually want to tamp down on those who go against woke ideology on campus, those same administrators will determine who that policy is going to be enforced against. A lot of universities have these policies that do lead to disciplinary action, that will lead to mandated diversity training, that will lead to letters of apology if a student is accused of offensive speech or hateful speech. In the case of a public state university that is taxpayer funded, therefore an extension of the state, they are very much beholden to the First Amendment. So they cannot restrict students' constitutionally protected speech rights. And that's something that's really important for students to recognize when they're on campus.
Well, Cherise, thank you so much for your time today and for weighing in on this very important topic. We appreciate it.
Always happy to be on.